Right now, I think we are doing something really incredible and special at Creative Assembly by recreating the Alien. We're trying to recreate the feeling of the original Alien from the first film. It's a chance to make that original Alien scary again. We're so used to games where we gun down hundreds of aliens with a pulse rifle and it's just not scary anymore. So, this is something I've wanted to do for many, many years. I want to make that one horror game where that one alien is just seeing it is terrifying. It turns out a lot of people wanted that, and a lot of people had the same idea. So when I went for an interview at Creative Assembly and heard out what they were doing, I was like, I need to work on this. And luckily I got the chance to. But this led us to some interesting design decisions, because we could go out and we could plan to make this game, and we could get the atmosphere feeling right, we could get the world feeling right, we could nail the audio, we can do all those tricks with the VHS players and make all the UI look strange in 1979. We could nail everything about the aesthetic of the game. But if we didn't create the alien, and didn't make the alien feel like it was that original film, then we didn't have a game. The alien was the most important thing to us. So we wanted to make it non-scripted, because we figured that it had to be tough and it had to be terrifying. So if every time it kills you, you restart and it does the same thing, that's a problem, because that's not as scary. We wanted a lot of replay value to it, and we figured out that actually if you died and did the same thing and you could predict it, it wasn't scary anymore. Because you had more information than the creature, therefore you felt more powerful than the creature. So we needed to build a systematic, non-scripted alien that could do anything and would hunt you down. So we built it around senses. This creature can hear, it can see, and it has behaviors that drive those senses. So we don't tell it to go from A to B, we just drop it in an area and see what it does. We give it abilities, so when the player can do something, it understands what the player's doing and then has behaviors to react to that. And the most important part of that for me was the communication. Because we learned very early on, if we built an alien that could hunt you and was terrifying and was great, you didn't really read it or you couldn't tell what it was doing, it just wasn't fun, it just killed you every time. And this led us some interesting level design decisions as well. A lot of level designers are almost like film directors. They think very scripted and very linear, so they think, this happens and then this happens and then explosion! And yeah, that's the way the level's going to play. But with systematic AI and an alien that can be anywhere, that suddenly is very tricky to do. You have to think in a way of, there's a series of outcomes, and the player could be anywhere, and the alien could be anywhere. The player could be doing this, they could be there, and something that changes the way you would design the level. Environments have to support this as well. If the alien can be anywhere, you have to think about the layout, the heights, the distances, lines of sight, vents, hiding places, and this all has to be thought about in great detail. When the alien can be anywhere, the level design has to support that. So you can see here in this map on the right, we've got lots of circles and loops in the environment, so you can't really get cornered, because if you're in a dead-end corner with the alien straight ahead of you, there's not much you can do unless you've got abilities. So we had to think about that and put lots of alternate routes into the world. When you're thinking about preset events, you could design a level and say, okay, you spend lots of time in the room with the alien, and the alien busts out of this wall and then he comes and attacks you. But if he's going to bust out of that wall every single time, what if the alien followed you in the room first? All of a sudden you have to think of a way to remove the alien before you bring him back in, and then you're thinking linearly and you're not thinking as the alien needs to be used. So we try and randomize things wherever possible. And this includes pickups. You walk into a room and go, the key to that door is there, brilliant, and then you die. You go, right, I'm going to be fine. The key to that door is going to be there, and you run in and it's not there, and you sink a little. And that's amazing. Because when you play that game, it's going to be a nightmare for anyone writing the guide for the game, but it's a really interesting gameplay experience. And again, vents, underfloor routes, environment loops, we have to think about all these things when building it. And from working in games for so many years, we're in the last stages of this game, and I've been working this for over 3 years now, and I sit down and play it at my desk, and every time I boot it up, I don't know where the alien is, and I don't know what he's going to do, and that's amazing. For telling you from someone who's worked in games for many years, sitting down and playing the games for the first time every time is amazing. So, in true show style, I'd like to ask, what are your questions?
In the recent Alien Isolation game, I've seen master trailers. One of the things that was touted was that if you use too much of the noisemaker mechanic, where eventually the alien will ignore it. One thing I've heard about is that some people might theorize that if you use it enough and the alien starts ignoring the noisemaker, you throw it at your feet and the alien ignores you. Does that happen?
So, a really fun thing about this is when we first started to show this game to people, it's a typical game designer thing to go out and say, oh my god, we've got all these amazing mechanics and we can do this and we can do that and that's incredible and check this out. But we started showing it to people and saying what the alien was capable of, and we were quite shocked by the reaction, because some people would say, oh, I kind of wanted to learn that for myself, or oh, that would have been an amazing moment if I'd have just discovered that. So we learned pretty quickly, well, actually, we want to keep a lot of this back, because the kind of meat of the game is discovering what the alien is capable of. So your question to, is that an exploit? No. But using those devices in different ways and finding out how the alien reacts to them is the main chunk of the game. So when you play through it and discovering that for yourself is such a big thing, I'm not going to answer that.
What's your opinion on the way the industry has such a high turnover of staff and studios letting massive waves of staff go at the end of the project, only to hire completely different people back at a later date? Obviously, you've got a lot of really big studios struggling at the moment, and like Crytek appears to be in trouble, things like that. Like, what's your opinion on how the industry is kind of growing up, if you will, and these things?
It's a really turbulent time, and we're quite a young industry when you think about how long we've been around and some of our processes. Just at the studios I've been to, people do things in very, very different ways, like from process to hiring and things like that. I think it's very natural for a young studio who want to make lots of variety of games to try and take on a contractor model and try to emulate the film industry a bit, where they get in a group of VFX artists, and at the end, maybe the next game doesn't need the VFX artists, so it doesn't make sense to employ them full time. And it's quite a hard balance to reach, because unless you're a game like, you know, something like Assassin's Creed or like an Ubisoft studio where they're making the same thing and they know the talent base they need, and they can say to these people, we can give you full time, they can get into a situation where they're employing people that they won't have a use for. I mean, you know, imagine if you're working on a first-person shooter and suddenly you get a contract to work on a real-time strategy. You know, you've got a lot of character animators and, you know, people like that who are going to think, oh wait, that's not quite the next thing. Or, you know, if you go from even a third person to a racing game, you know, there's some transferable skills, but it's quite difficult to learn. So I think it's a very tricky thing for both people working in the industry and studios to manage, because without like a massive hit that's going to sustain you and, you know, make everyone rich and, you know, provide that income, it's very difficult to manage. But it's such a turbulent time. I don't really know how the industry is going to go with that sort of stuff, because right now you see these small teams like the guys making Walker. That's like 12 guys, and they made something that looks more incredible than Halo. And I'm like, they just did that in a year, and it's amazing. And some of the CVs we're getting in showreels have just got such cutting edge visuals and stuff. And just thinking, it's not unfeasible for these small teams to come up. So the way I see, you know, the divide going at the moment is you have a smaller and smaller group of AAA studios making big blockbuster hits, but where you used to have a few small indie studios making kind of middle ground hits, where the middle ground of studios have kind of collapsed and fall away, they're starting to be spread into by all these incredible indie projects that are feeling closer and closer to AAA games. So I can't really make a prediction, but I just guess that will hopefully close the middle ground, and it will be easier for people who have been contractors at other studios to employ themselves in these studios.
With Alien Isolation, is there kind of a different sort of pressure with being a licensed game, especially for the franchise? Game history hasn't been spectacular of late. A lot of people take these kind of movies very seriously and passionate about them and want to get it done right.
It's quite an easy one to answer, because all those people you're talking about who are really, really massively passionate, they're all on the dev team. We're massively critical of ourselves, and sometimes it can be too much, because, you know, we put something on screen that would have been in the film. The alien doesn't look like that. I didn't hear that sound, and we can really, really be overcritical on stuff that actually most Alien fans will be fine with. But every single shot, we've watched that film so many times and just, you know, broken it down into its core components and rebuilt again from it, that we just do know it inside out. So I think it's easy because we are all massive fans of it, and we almost put the pressure on ourselves. So as well as the external pressure, we're just thinking, this is our chance, like I said earlier, it's our chance to make the game we always wanted, and luckily everyone seems to be responding in the same way.
Sorry, another question about Alien. Was the decision to go back to kind of the struggle kind of aesthetic, was that a natural decision right from the beginning? I know you kind of answered this in the presentation, but were there any potential routes you made on that in regards to the setting? I obviously not, I mean, the global research was done to death now, unfortunately not very well under a lot of circumstances, but you know, were you on that the prison from the third film, or that? Or was it always going to be
the assembly cut of that third film was amazing. I'd love to make a game of that. But no, our original pitch for this was we just had a single alien and a single female character in the environment, and it was like, survive, can we pull that off? And when we built the original visuals from the first film, it just felt like this was natural, you know. We put Ripley in the same situation her mother was in, and you know, 20th Century Fox just responded to it really well. So this is the game we want, because we are recreating that feeling from the first film. So the kind of 70s aesthetic was always something that was core to it, because it's going back to when just one alien was absolutely terrifying and you didn't have the weapons to deal with it. And it just felt like, you know, a big part of the environment was it was unforgiving. You know, you couldn't find laser guns and sentry turrets that would help you out, because everything looked like it was an oil rig, or you know, it was truckers in space. So that was a big part of it, yeah.
I just want to know, I do love the VHS aesthetic, the voices are amazing.
Thank you. In the back there.
What was your team's response after Colonial Marines had such a negative reaction? Your game seems to cover a lot of the complaints people had, and the expectations are negative, but at the same time, seeing fellow devs working on the same IP probably didn't feel like seeing their trash so much.
It was a bit of a double-edged sword, to be honest, because it's like I said earlier in the changing landscape. We were working on this game way before, like, you know, Colonial Marines was released, so it was something we were aware of being developed alongside. And our biggest fear as developers was, what if they do something we were doing? And what if they're going to do exactly the same thing? What if they've got a level where it's just you surviving against that alien? And, you know, that was kind of worrying for us. So on one hand, we had complete relief, because when they released, it was such a different game. We're like, oh, right, okay, we're still on track, we don't have to change anything. And the same thing happened with Prometheus as well. When that film came out, we all went to the cinemas of the studio to watch it, and we're like, please don't change anything, please don't rewrite it. But it turns out we were fine, so that was good too. The reaction to the game was also pretty great for us, but also frustrating, because so many people were, you know, very angry and vocal, but it showed us how passionate people still were. And the best thing was, people were saying, why can't we have a game with one alien? And the most frustrating thing as a developer is to be working on something in secret and seeing the whole world talk about it on the forum, and your fingers on the reply button, and you're like, we're doing it, and you can't do it. You just have to wait for the announce. So yeah, it was exciting and frustrating. At the back.
With the advent of Kickstarter and the fact that it now seems to be changing the landscape of film and game industry, the likes of Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen, do you see that being a major impact on certainly how you do your job in future, compared to what, like you when you have the big companies like EA, which are generally received fairly negatively? But do you think this Kickstarter is going to have the impact that people think it's going to have?
I think Kickstarter is a really, really interesting topic, actually, because from working in AAA games for so long, you get used to forums and people, you know, ranting about what the game should be and shouldn't be. And if you think about Kickstarter as those forums being all the people who have invested in your game, do you have more responsibility to them all of a sudden? And are those people the shareholders for your game? And if they don't like what you're making all of a sudden, should you give them the money back? And I find it from that perspective really interesting, because I always think that if you've got a vision for your game and you know what you want it to make, you should stick to that vision, and you release it, and then people like it or they don't like it. You know, it kind of touches on that end of Mass Effect 3 thing where everyone's like, it shouldn't be like that, they need to rewrite it. And it's like, you know, would you kind of write to a film director and say, I hated the end of that film, and change it? No, because it was their vision. I think they should have stuck to it. So I think Kickstarter has almost an inherent danger in it, because you are saying to these people, I'm going to make something for you. And there's almost an expectation you need to do that. I think you have to treat it very, very carefully, and if you want to work with Kickstarter, it can be great, because sometimes what you're making is exactly what people want. It has changed the industry already, because, you know, as I mentioned, with pitching games to, you know, VCs and people like that, you can put your game on Kickstarter. I think I personally don't recommend it, because I do feel like if you are selling a game to people and they're paying you beforehand, then you are kind of entitled for them to do something. And that's not something as a game designer I would actually want to do. So I think it does have a big impact on the kind of medium to indie-sized teams where they're looking for funding. But I think, like I mentioned, I think bigger games it's not going to have so much of an effect on them, because they still have the funding. But those teams are being bigger and bigger and having to release every year and getting more funding, but also trying to maintain that top space. So yeah, I think it affects the medium and small teams a lot. Yeah.
As you mentioned, the AI session was really good source of the local game. So how many people worked on it, and did you use like academic research to
So we have a fairly large programming team. I mean, we've got teams around kind of 120 people at the moment, and probably about half of that is programmers. The feel of the alien was always something that we always focused on, and a lot of people worked on and tried to nail down. So right from the beginning, it was like, okay, what is the character going to do? Where's he going to go? How's he going to act? And it was just layering up behaviours and behaviours and behaviours. So a lot of our, early design was just in big white boxes with the alien and trying to figure out what he was doing and developing it on. So, we didn't really start building the rest of the game until we knew that alien was, 100%. We could work on the environments, and we actually made some pretty difficult decisions with that because we knew we wanted the environment to feel claustrophobic and we wanted to feel like the original film, so very tight corridors. On the other hand, the people working on the alien say the alien has to feel terrifying, so it has to be full size. So we built a full 3-meter size alien and we put it in a one-to-one world, and it's like driving a bus through a small village. So there's lots of stuff like that we had to consider. But yeah, all the focus was on the alien for the early stages.
So like academic research to like do it as more reality.
Well, a lot of it was not so much about like expanding the realms of AI, because we didn't want to make we didn't ever want to say the alien learns, because it's not a learning thing. We wanted to create a set of behaviours that you could unlock and access, and that the alien would react to, and it could to use those in intelligent ways. So our AI programmers themselves, they're like any enthusiast. They're really, really into what they do. So in their spare time, at the job, they are always researching stuff like that and always looking into new fields. But we didn't, as a group, say, right, let's look at what's going on in the world of AI and choose to inform this, because actually we felt like we had a lot of the tools to try at least what we wanted to do early.
Not because of the high alien.
Oh.
Yeah, as someone who actually produces games, and you start out your team as well, what's your opinion on the exclusive content for like pre-order books and stuff like that? Is that as frustrating for you as it is for consumers to say, oh well, okay, if you spend an extra £5, you get the Pulse Rifle DLC or something like that on day one, or if you pre-order the game, you'll get an extra hour of content. But surely it's frustrating for you to sort of have everyone's getting full experience.
It's kind of a tricky one to answer as a developer, because you don't see the game as everyone on the outside sees it. You see it as, in my time, I get to make all this stuff. And then a publisher might come to you and say, hey, any chance we could get a couple of extra levels? And you're like, I'd love to make a couple of extra levels, sure. And then all of a sudden we've got a chance to make, the original Ripley on Nostromo. You're like, this is incredible, So, as a developer, you look at what you've got to do to release the game rather than when stuff's coming out. People keep saying to me, oh, can I buy like this, and does this DLC come with that, and do like that? And I'm like, I just make the games. Because you do think about it like that. You think about what affects you, and you put so many hours into making that core experience, what it should be, that the kind of stuff in the peripheral doesn't affect you so much. So when anyone was asking me those questions, I always say, hey, you probably should talk to Sega.
With Alien, it's not about Alien per se, it's not about technology. You said you've been developing it for over 3 years. About a year and a half ago, about a year and a half ago, obviously the Oculus technology was announced. That game is running on Oculus, and obviously I've read some interesting feedback on what that game's like and how terrifying and how it amplifies the whole feeling of the game, which is awesome. Do you think VR is going to play a big role moving forward? And secondary to that, one of the things, because we've done a little bit of Oculus stuff, not much, but we've done a little bit. The whole game design, like when you're working with VR, it's like weird because obviously doors feel shorter and wider and things like that. And you were saying earlier about corridors feeling tight and stuff. So have you had to go back and completely rethink how that game feels because you're supporting the Oculus, or are you just using it as a secondary thought and it's kind of a cool way to experience the game if it's not built for that?
So personally, as a game designer, I think you should always design your game to the strength of the platform.
Yeah.
So if you're making a game for the Wii U, you do everything the Wii U does.
Yeah.
Same for the Xbox, same for the PS3. With this game, because of multi-platform, I just think about the core game itself. So I'm like, right, this is the game we're making, and this platform will support it in the same way. And then you kind of branch out little bubbles to say, okay, well actually, on the Xbox we can do this, on the PS4 we can flash the pad and make the sound. And for this case, while we're developing it, the Oculus Rift came along, and it was like, we could do some interesting stuff with that.
Yeah.
Like anyone, like programmers are like, oh, I'm going to get one of the dev kits and see if I can hook it up. And then suddenly you walk down the office and you see people wearing the kits, and you're like, wow, And a lot of it was kind of that retrofit, like, we can make this work if we do these things. So there's programmers on the team who just love that stuff, and they're the guys who specialize in that. And they're also the guys that manage to develop the prototype that we got to show 83.
Yeah.
So this also touches back to what I was saying about the sustainability of studios and the next projects you do. So we know what game we're making, and we know where that ends, and we've got plans for what we're going to do next. And then something like Oculus happens, you're like, maybe we should do that. And it's something you think about. So I think it's something we look into. As for the answer to the question, do I think there's a lot of future in it? I do, mainly because Sony is producing Morpheus. And I don't think Sony would invest money into something like that unless it was going to be huge. So yeah, I think there's a lot of future in that stuff.
From like the developer's perspective, what do you think about like a current sort of issue among consumers of games, that a lot of games are being pushed too far to their deadline? So instead of having the deadline extended and the game being more complete, because like games like Battlefield beforehand, I think, and a couple of other Ubisoft games, I think the process that create assembly of things was wrong too. And what do you think about some of the developers' perspective?
It's quite amusing because you say it like it's a new problem.
No,
but like
it's like a lot more games recently.
I don't think they have. I think that's always been the case. From as long as I've been into games, there's always been games slipping and games getting canned and things like that. I remember hearing about an Akira game, like when I was 20. Like, oh my god, that would be incredible! And it's like, yeah, you remember one. And it just disappeared into the ether. And I'm like, what happened to that? And it's when you look at that side of the, I say business because at that point it is a business. You're not looking at the ideas. Your choice as a developer is someone comes to you and says, you have to deliver this game in this time, and you say, oh, but it would be really great if we could do these things. And they say, okay, well, you've got 120 staff employed. How do you pay them all for the next 6 months if you want that time? And if you pay them all, will you still make the money back on the game? Because if you're a publisher, you don't want to invest money in something that's going to lose money. And unfortunately, on that side of things, it is just all business. It's about numbers, head counts, sustainability, and what you can do. And I don't think that's ever changed. That was always the same, like way back in my early days at EA, where we look at things and they go, right, okay, you know what? We can give you an extra 6 months, but we have to fire half the team. Because we can pay you this much, and we've got that money, and we can pay half people to do it twice as long. And you kind of have to make those decisions. I don't have to make them because I'm a game designer, I get told what to do. But the business side and the production side, they make those kind of calls. And if they think that the increase in quality is going to make that much more money, they can afford to make that investment, then those things happen. But I think it's always been that case.
Do you think the video game industry needs a union? And what's your general opinions on that?
Do I think the video game industry needs a union? Was the question. That's a tricky one. I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that because it's you're painting a picture, right? And I tell you, you have to finish that picture in 3 hours. And you get to the end of 3 hours and you're like, oh, I want to do more on it, right? I need to do more, but someone says, no, you're not allowed to do it. But if you knew that deadline was coming, you'd want to put in more hours beforehand, right? So this comes back to why we're into video games. A lot of people work those long hours and put in extra effort and things like that because they feel passionate about what they're making and they want to put extra things in. I think the danger is when producers or management decide to scope in time for weekends and after work as part of your time. So like, oh, they'll finish this because I know these guys are going to put in the extra effort. That kind of thing is wrong. And I think maybe a union would help that kind of stuff, but actually, how do you have a union where people are going to say, we're not standing for this? Well, I'm just going to sneak into it and do a few extra hours on this because I really like this mechanic. I think it would be great for the video game industry to have a greater representation and more communication, but a union, I'm not so sure. I don't know. Good question. Any others?
From the Ubisoft, which were glossing over the transitory community female character, do you think there needs to be a greater diversification of characters in video games? Or female characters?
So there's the whole trope of generic white guy with the beard and the machine gun who seems to be in every single game. And for me, it's like you make the character for the game you're making. When we made Alien, it was like, right, it has to be a female lead. And the first character we built in the game was a crash test dummy with a ponytail. And it's like, right, okay, we always knew it was going to be a female lead. It suits the game and it's what we wanted to make. I really think people should have a lot more ideas of the type of games they're making and try and make as many creative and interesting decisions with the world, the mechanics, the narrative, and the characters. If you're going to make a game and go, right, 4 white bearded guys, I'm like, I'm pretty sure you can do better with that. What I disagree with is someone having the idea of 4 white bearded guys is my game, and everyone go, no, 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 you need to put different people in there. Because, again, that's outside influence on someone's idea, and if they want to make 4 bearded white guys as a video game, and that's their core idea, then they should. They shouldn't be forced to put in females and everything, because, you know, like different races and everything, because that's what they, you know, that's maybe not their idea. So I think we should design thinking about those things and taking them into consideration early. I do a lot of game jams, and whenever I make a game jam, I always make it so you can play as either a girl or a boy. And that's mainly because one of my friends, she goes, I hate it when I have to play a game with a guy. Okay, cool. And for me, that's part of the idea from early on. So yes, I think studios should think about that stuff earlier, but yeah, I always feel weird when people get forced to do it.
What do you think the best thing that you can do to develop your CV for game design is? It seems like if you want to get into programming, you learn another language, if you want to be an artist, you build up kind of portfolios. But there seems to be a kind of void with game design from the beginning to getting that first job. And I just wonder how you go about that.
So I think it is building as many practical examples as you can. Because I could interview you and ask you a bunch of questions about game design, and we can talk about theory and blah, blah, blah. But if you bring me something you built, and you tell me about the decisions you made and the things you had to cut and why, and you know what you tried to do with this, and interesting ways you found about things working, I'm like, great, okay, there's game design. I see about how you approach problems, how you fix things, how you design around things, and that's the most important thing. So if you can turn up with provable examples, and even if it's just a mod for a map, I'm playing Unreal Tournament, for example, and I've made these 3 maps, and here's what they were designed to do. And you can communicate your idea and how you thought about it. I think that's the key thing, just physical examples. And yes, game jams are awesome at doing that, because quickly you build up all these games and all the decisions you've had to make, and all these proven examples, and you get to do art, code, and scripting, and sound, and everything. And you can just show how diverse you can be. So yeah, practical examples.
I guess it just seems that game design is already quite far up the food chain in terms of once you're a designer, you're already making quite big decisions. Is there like an entry-level area?
There is. I mean, I originally started my first full-on design role. So it's a bit about my history. I started off in customer services, answering the telephones, advising people about games. And from that, I went to testing. And from testing, I got to speak to some of the people on the team and say, you know what, this game's kind of broken here. And from there, I went to going, this game's kind of broken here. If you did this, that would fix these 3 things. And all of a sudden, I was problem solving and designing. They got me to a situation where they needed help on a game where they needed the camera system to work on. And I said, hey, I've done video production, I love making films and stuff, I understand all the rules about cameras. I can come in and do the camera stuff if you just need someone to do it. So it was a very, very small role, just doing the camera systems, working with a couple of other people, and that's what I started doing. And from that, I got to do camera systems on other games. But while I was on those other games, someone was like, this level was supposed to be underwater, and the only way we're going to get it to work is we place loads and loads of bubbles that float upwards, and that's going to take someone hours. I'm like, I'll do that. I'll go and place those bubbles in my spare time, because I know 9 to 5 I'm doing cameras, but I can work late and do the bubbles for you. They're like, cool, okay, this guy can do the bubbles. So to do the bubble, you need to know how to use the placement system. Okay, cool, I get to learn the placement system. Now I'm placing pickups. Now I'm placing pickups and bubbles, and when someone needs pickups doing, and there's a bug with that, I can be the guy to do that. Pretty soon I've understood the whole tool set, and now next time it's like, right, do you want to design a couple of levels? And that's the process. It's just learning as much as you can, helping where you can. Quite often there's a role that needs doing, and you can help out. We've got a couple of guys in our team at the moment who have come through QA, where they've been testing and they've been working with the tool sets, and to test the tools and the mechanics, they built their own test levels. So to do that, they had to learn the scripting system and how to build things. So from that, these guys can now fix bugs. Fixing the design. I think we're out of time, so thank you very much.